Well, welcome to another Memphis drawing. Today we're continuing on our 200 drawing prompt book. Let's check out the prompt. The prompt is palace. Here's our drawing for today. This happens to be the only palace, the only official palace in the United States. And this is the Iolani Palace in Honolulu, Hawaii. If you want to see how we drew it, stay tuned because that's what we're going to do today. Well, our prompt for today is palace. And the only palaces I could think of first were like Buckingham Palace or the Palace at Versailles, the Taj Mahal, all those kind of palaces. And I said, I wish we had a palace here in America. And then I thought, hey, we do have a palace here in the United States. It's called the Corn Palace. It's in Mitchell, South Dakota. I was taking a road trip up there, going to the Black Hills and Badlands and Mount Rushmore and all that stuff. And found this tourist attraction here called the Corn Palace. But I thought, wait a minute, I lived in Hawaii, and Hawaii used to have a monarchy. And sure enough, I looked around, and this is called the Iolani Palace, and it was the palace for the monarchy of Hawaii before it became a territory and then finally a state. All I got to go by is this one grainy picture here. Now, in order to make this thing symmetrical, I put a center line right down the center here, and then I could just decide how far I want to make the vertical lines, and then I can make them the same distance on both sides using a compass. This is the I've got it kind of blocked in here, but this thing's going to be detail intensive. I'm just going to have to work through it. I'm going to have to make up a lot of details because the picture I have is very grainy, and palm trees right here kind of block this part of the building. I can't even tell what that part even looks like. Same over here. Got palm trees here. So there's some kind of guard towers up here in the corner on both sides. I'm going to have to make that up. And a lot of other details I'm going to have to make up. There's of course I can't see the inscriptions here, up here, and the decorations down here. And I can't see this railing. There's some kind of a railing that runs right along there. I can't see it. Can't see the pattern. Same thing down here. But we'll figure it out. We always do. The native Hawaiians, of course, are Polynesians, and they fascinate me. Because I spent a lot of time in the Pacific, and that is a big place. And those Polynesian navigators in their boats went out and colonized. Not only did they colonize, but they found and colonized all the different island chains in the Pacific, even all the way out to Easter Island. Hawaii was one of the last islands to be colonized. It was Hawaiians found it about 1,000 years ago, I think. 1,000 to 1,500 years ago, so that's not a whole lot of time. And of course they didn't really, they had, Hawaii is has about 50 or 60 islands. I don't know the exact number. I was stationed in Hawaii for 2 different tours, the reason I know anything about it. Of course, when you're in the Navy, a lot of times it really doesn't matter where you're stationed. You're going to be. One thing they, in the military, when they say fun, travel, and adventure, they're not lying about the travel. Or the fun. And you can't see it here, but you can't see it in this picture. But there are, looks like, decorative brickwork all the way down these columns. So the central part of the building has these columns of brickwork. You can see it just barely right along here. And it looks like over here on these guard towers, you got the same arrangement. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. Looks like they repeat for this part of the building, this part of the building, and then this part of the building. So I'll go ahead and put those in. Where's my straight edge? Remember we were talking about ellipses and how my train wheels weren't right when we did that train. I broke down and bought one of these ellipse deals, ellipse template. Okay, so what I figure is these outer columns here must have a window in there too. Actually, this is an open. This is the opening to the veranda. So what the Hawaiians did is once they got to Hawaii, they went to the, came in waves probably, but they spread out and on all the different islands, Hawaii is what they call an archipelago, which is a string of islands created by a hot spot in the crust that's sliding to the west, and as it the hot spot is kind of stays in one place, and the hot spot drives up volcanoes and makes the islands. If you look on a map, you see that. They just keep going. All the way up to all the way to Russia, Siberia. So anyway, they split up on all the different islands, and then each one of the islands was controlled by the various leaders of the groups. I don't know if they fought between themselves, but I don't know if they needed to. They had plenty of room. And they just and traded back and forth and this and that. But then, so they're kind of split up into all these different groups, and but then Hawaii was discovered by Europeans. The famous Captain Cook, I think they called them the Sandwich Islands, the Europeans did. Well, you can kind of guess what happened next after the Europeans found them. There was probably close to 1 million native Hawaiians. I could be off on that. I'm just, telling you what I know. There was a lot of them spread all over the different islands. Ni'iau, Kauai, Molokai, Lanai, Maui, the Big Island of Hawaii, and the meeting place, and that was Oahu. That's where this palace is located, Oahu. And I probably left out one of the islands. There's another small island that was used for ceremonial purposes, and that was called Ko'olavi. It's off the coast of Maui. Well, anyway, they had a pretty big population, but when the Europeans came, they got wiped out by disease, just like what normally happens when native populations are exposed to diseases for the first time. Diseases and also warfare, because the Europeans naturally thought that anything they discovered, they got to keep. Well, what this what ended up happening then is they established a kingdom. They only had 2 dynasties. One was the only one the one that I know about is the famous one. I can't even think of it. There were 2 dynasties, and Kamehameha. You probably heard that name, Kamehameha. That was the first dynasty. And I don't know the second one, but the second one is the dynasty that actually built this palace. But, so they were discovered by the explorers, but I didn't completely wipe them out. what changed their destiny was the commercial interest came in. And started growing sugarcane, pineapples, and whatever else they grew. And now, Hawaii becomes a big deal. So in the early 1890s, I think about 1893, the Queen of Hawaii, and I don't recall her name, she was, well, let me back up just a little bit. The commercial growers became so powerful that they really wanted to run the country, or run, and they didn't want any kind of interference from the locals. So in 1893, they dethroned the Queen and actually locked her up in the third floor of this palace. She was there for a long time, I think. And set up a provisional government. I think they called it an independent republic. And you got to remember, this is on Oahu. The rest of the Hawaiians, all over the spread out over the 1,500 miles of the archipelago, a lot of them didn't even know what had happened, So the growers, they had a committee. They called it the Committee for Public Safety. Took over the island, set up a provisional government, and used the palace as the headquarters. The palace belonged to the Queen, but she was in prison. Well, then what happened, in about 1898, the U.S. government sponsored a petition to admit Hawaii as a territory. And the Hawaiians weren't going to go along with it. And when the U.S. government discovered that they didn't want to be a territory, what do you think they did? You guessed it. They sent in the Marines, overthrew the territorial government, and declared Hawaii as a territory of the United States. which it remained until 1959. Just about 60 years later, it became the 49th state. Okay. So what happened to the palace after the Americans seized the country? Well, what they did is they turned the palace into the administrative territorial capital, and they freed the queen. And this became the territorial office building, where the governor of the territory carried out his functions. And then, a few years later, well, I think the reason, one of the reasons the Americans took over the place is they wanted to, Hawaii is 1,500 miles from, a little more than 1,500 miles from California, and the Americans wanted a port to put their ships in. And they had a dandy port in Hawaii, a huge port at Pearl Harbor. You could put your whole fleet in there. So now they have a nice port, and then World War II came, and they used the palace as the headquarters for defense of the capital, or the defense of Hawaii, after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. There was a big, they were sweating the load quite a bit about the defense of Hawaii. For all they knew, the Japanese were fixing to invade, and they probably would have too if they could have. And the building here continued to be used until 1960, the mid-1960s, as an administrative building in Hawaii, in Honolulu. The So what I'm doing here, I'm drawing, there's 3 columns on each side, and I'm drawing them in. And they each sit on a little pedestal. I need to get rid of, that's a center line right there. So there they were. They were. Hawaii was made a state in 1959, and then kind of ironically, the United States I think in the early 90s, 1993 or something like that, the United States, I think they issued what amounted to an apology for stealing Hawaii from the Hawaiians. You know, sometimes we think we're Americans. We all think we're the good guys, and we normally are. But historically, we did the same kinds of things that we get mad at other people for doing. Another example was in 1837 or so, 1840, right in there. We invaded Mexico and annexed California, Arizona, New Mexico, it's clearly a war of aggression, and I'm not just looking at it from a modern standpoint either, because in Ulysses S. Grant's memoirs, he called it clearly a war of aggression. He fought in the war. He did his duty. But he could clearly see what was going on. The president then was a guy named Polk. Can't remember his first name. You're going to love this one. When the provisional government, under the authority of the Committee for Safety, when they took over, they pretty much emptied the house, the palace, and sold off all the, anything of value. They just sold off. Leaving the Queen penniless. I guess that's better than what they did in France, though, isn't it? So, the reason I mention that is because after 1969, the Hawaiians were like, "Hey, can we have our palace back?" And sure enough, that's what they did. They gave the palace back, and it's now run by a historic society. Turned it into a museum, and they were able to locate a lot of the original furniture and stuff from the house, because it wasn't destroyed. It was pretty valuable. So people, when people bought it, they kept it, and they were able to find a lot of it. And then some of it they had to reproduce. And now they got tours of the house, the palace. It's actually located in downtown Honolulu. I kind of, whenever I travel and see tourist attractions and stuff, I always kind of, kind of do that, kind of read up on the place, find out about its history. Makes it kind of interesting. These are the steps up to the palace. One of the reasons I didn't want to do the Buckingham Palace and all that, had trouble getting it on the page. I mean, this is a small palace, and I'm still having trouble getting it on the page. And forget about the Palace of Versailles. That place takes up a couple hundred acres. As painful as it may sound, I'm going to actually color this thing in with black ink. And then I'm not going to add much other color to it. I'm going to just because the building itself is, made out of limestone or coral. I think it's made out of coral rock. And its natural color is kind of blonde. So I really, I only have to hit the dark places with color. Leave the rest alone. But I'm bothering to go over it with ink because if I just color it in with pencil, I'll lose a lot of the detail. And I like drawings with a lot of detail. It's kind of a discovery process, You look at a drawing and you see new things, you didn't notice before. I totally don't get abstract art. I guess I need to take an art appreciation class because I don't appreciate it. These towers have these look like radio towers. There's some kind of towers sticking out of the top. I know they're not lightning rods because I don't think Hawaii gets much lightning. It gets a lot of rain, but the due to its kind of isolated location out in the middle of the ocean, it doesn't get the same, the same mixing of air currents that you get over land. But when it comes to lightning, you never say never in Hawaii, because you have every kind of climate there is, I think, except maybe Arctic. But some of the mountains get snow. Mauna Kea on Maui gets snow. If you go over on the Big Island of Hawaii, you can take one of the roads up the. You can take one of the roads up the side of the mountain, and halfway up you'll think you're in Kentucky or something. You got these dairy cows and regular deciduous trees. And you go up a little higher and you get above the tree line. But Hawaii does have a very nice climate. A lot of people don't even have air conditioning in their house. It's it's very dry. Doesn't get real hot or real cold. Not very humid, depending on where you're at, of course. But Honolulu is great. Hawaii is our only state that is located in the tropics, which means that once a year the sun, or twice a year, the sun is directly overhead. Unlike, we're in the temperate zone, the rest of us, and the sun is never directly overhead. And another thing about Hawaii is it's very expensive. I believe in 2023, the medium house price in Hawaii was like $850,000. Which means there's, that means there's houses for less and houses for more. When I was stationed there, one of the guys I was working with, when he got there, he and his wife bought a house. And I don't know what he paid for it, but when he left, 2.5 years later, he sold the house for 3 times more than he paid for it. So when he got back to the States, he was able to take his profit and buy a house for cash. Now I don't think you can count on doing that all the time, but he caught it right at the sweet spot. I'm going to mostly do the main structure of the of our palace in gray. And then I'll just add some darker tones as needed. One of the things that is dark is the roof here. And the trim is dark. This thing is going to look like a black and white pencil sketch, isn't it? Now I'm going to finish it. It's kind of this gray stone. I'm going to finish it just with some colored highlights. Here's the basement. Basement windows. Now let's do some brown shutters. First story veranda here has these doors with shutters on them. And these second floor veranda has shutters also. And in the tower, this is a shuttered window too. Let's just go crazy and use make these shutter green. Green and brown go good together. And let's put some yellow in these top windows, make them look like maybe the sun shining through. And then this main entrance here, make these black. And I think we need some shadows here. Not a lot of shadows. This is a kind of an architectural drawing. Well, that does it for this Memphis drawing. Today's prompt was palace. We made us a little drawing of the only palace in the United States, the Iolani Palace. It's located in Honolulu, Hawaii. And this is our drawing. Let's see what tomorrow's prompt is. It is padlock. Hope to see you then.